quiz.
No,
It's actually kind of cute. The S4, it's not a fancy thing. The S4 is a reference to 4 S's in the full name. It's a municipal separate stormwater sewer system, municipal separate stormwater sewer system. So instead of calling it an MSSSS, they just say MS4. It's M with 4 S's.
is that gonna be on the test?
Things you learn.
I thought I'd offer you that, and do you want to know what a Speedies is, or should I save it for next week? You know, the Speedies permit, which is not related to SPDs.
Surprise us at the next week.
That was in your resolution, one of your resolutions.
Yeah, surprises.
That's all.
We're gonna need to have one of those facts every meeting.
now you're set up.
You set it up every meeting, you gotta have one of those.
Well,
facts.
it's only because it's topical now, because it was it was in one of your resolutions.
No,
Okay.
you're not getting away with that, you gotta have one every meeting. Well, just like it's your responsibility to close the door and you go in exec session, now you have to have one of these.
That's all, thanks.
Thank you. Andy,
Sorry, village administrator report.
yes,
Couple of items. Just mentionables. One, there's a bike tour coming up to the Hopper House this weekend, all the way from the Whitney Museum in celebration of Edward Hopper's birthday. And that's exciting. So you're likely to see more bikers than usual. Their route is going to be coming up Piermont Avenue to Gedney and then going to the Hopper House and then leaving on South Franklin Street, heading out. And I think they're going across the Tappan Zee Bridge and heading home on the east side. So that's exciting. Congratulations to them and Mike Hayes for putting that together. We are hopeful that the Bird Street sidewalk project will start in the next couple of weeks. We're kind of haranguing our contractor to get started on that. Just FYI. Other capital projects which are out there still is the repaving of Depew Avenue from the Park Gate up to Franklin. That's slated for sometime in early August. The South Broadway sidewalk project, which will run from Bird Street down to Depew on the west side, is slated to go out to bid soon. The village engineer is completing the bid specs, and we'll bring it back and put that out for bid. The TAP project, you're going to see construction starting hopefully on July 31st at the corner of First Avenue and North Broadway, where we finally arrived at what looks like a workable drainage plan there, which essentially means resurfacing the road, kind of scraping it down so the water can flow out around the corner. That involves tearing out some of the corners so that the sidewalk can be re-engineered to meet the new level of the road, because the wheelchair ramp has to come down and be flush with the road, and the road needs to get lower. So it involves changing the sidewalk. So that's slated for to start that week. Another piece of that project you'll see is that on South Broadway from Main Street to Bird Street, the light pole wiring, we had to leave that strung above ground, but they're coming back and because they broke it to dig a trench, and we're going to put conduit underground so the light would be wired underground instead of kind of strung and pulled. Those are the major items that remain for the TAP project. There's a little bit of work up by Fifth Avenue. There's a some sort of Belgian block that needs to be installed right in the corner that's left a little messy, and a couple of small things like that. And we're getting the trash cans and the recycling receptacles, all new ones through the whole run. The parts of the Broadway that were in the project, that is. So we're excited about that. We've done a lot of work kind of finding the right vendor and getting the right can. The tree guard item, I thought we were going to have any money for it. We do have a little bit of money, so we can get about half dozen of them focused on South Broadway, just to get one portion of the village tree garden. But these are the small fences that go around a tree pit that enable people to avoid stepping in the bumpy, mulchy area and having an accident, and B, if somebody wants to beautify it with flowers, it creates a protected area. And you see some of our businesses have done beautiful jobs, kind of boxing out and planting flowers, and we're hopeful that with the tree guards in place, more will participate in that way. So that's the TAP project in a nutshell. Just FYI, the Fresh Market decided not to close the whole. We granted them permission to close the parking lot for a larger festival for their car giveaway on August 6th. They've decided not to actually use the parking lot to do a smaller event. They kind of recalibrated their goals around that. Just a reminder, this weekend is the Jazz Fest right out here on a Sunday, running from, I don't know, roughly noon to 6 p.m. And I know that Maureen's Jazz Cellar is planning some wonderful music for that, and some food and so on. Lastly, the Summer of Soul outdoor film event in Arkley lot that had been planned and reviewed by the village board. They decided that they don't have time and sort of capacity to pull it together for July 28th. So they've asked him to, gratefully acknowledge the village board support on that. But they've said that they're not going to actually do that event. So they'll come up with another great idea soon, I'm sure. That's all I got for now.
Let's do the change of date for the board meeting
Okay,
right now. So, see if this works for everyone. The September was the 27th meeting.
the request is that the September 28th meeting be canceled in favor of an alternative date. The first week in October.
So it'll be October 5th
I believe that's
instead of
Correct.
September 28th.
I can do that.
You can do that?
If that's possible, for members.
That's got.
Are you done with that?
I know.
I
The
know.
fifth is fine with me.
So we mean we'd have 2 weeks in a row. We'd have meetings 2 weeks in a row. We'd have the 5th and the 12th. Because the 12th would be our first regular scheduled meeting in October. The 5th would be the meeting that would change from the second meeting in September.
Okay.
Do you think we need the possibility we don't need that like the middle of the day?
No, I don't think so. That's what we're gonna do in ECPA forward, so that would be, it may be shorter, but I still
No,
like
just
to
like-
keep the schedule. Yeah, I know.
No, I'm just looking because it's like
It's
it's a crowd and 3 in 3 weeks.
Yeah. October 5th work?
Yeah, well,
It may be that.
Yes. Yeah. and we can see how it happens.
Yeah, that's fine. So move that to the 5th. Everybody good?
Donna, you good with that?
yes.
All right, so I believe we need a resolution to change meeting dates since we have it in a resolution.
Right,
I would agree, yes.
So I'll move the resolution to change the September 28th date to October 5th. My motion, Pascal second, all in favor? Opposed, motion carried. Okay, so Jen, do you have anything for us? Manny, you sat through this whole thing. Did you have anything for us, or you just wanted to see how we operate and make fun of us at the next meeting?
I was invited in case you had any question, with the tree ordinance and
Okay.
sign. But you know, I didn't prepare a report, but I can briefly tell you that. The program that we getting ready to, or planning to establish in the building department, which you approve, of course, for the permitting. The negotiations are going very well with the company, Humphrey Mitchell. They submitted 2 proposals to me, which I'm reviewing now, and you'll see which one is the best or any correction. I will submit it to them and send to the board for you to review and give me your feedback if you wish to move forward with that. So it's going very well. I'm very excited with that program. The map link program that you approved is completed. Right now, we're using it internal in the building department just to make sure that it's 100% before we open it up to the general public, but that should be happening in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Just quickly for the public and folks that are here that are listening on, tell us what the map link will do.
Map link is a program that we have installed in the building department, where the general public will be able to access and gather all information in properties For example, if you want to build a house or if you want to open up a business, you type in the address and you say what you want to do. I want to put up a sign, I want to do this. And the computer will tell you all of the requirements. It'll tell you the zoning, the setback, what you can do, what you cannot do. So it's something that you're gonna be able to access 24/7. You know, give you all the information that you get if you call the building department, and you have at your fingertips at any time. And that'd be very helpful for all of us.
Yeah, so we're trying to automate our planning process for the public to make it easier for people to work through the process.
And the other program we did for the building permit, now you don't have to come, once we get approved and installed, you're able to apply for building permit online as well. You're able to schedule your inspections, any complaints, everything you'll see right through the system. Going forward 24/7.
Thank you, Manny. Okay, so we're in old business. So here's where we've got the tree ordinance and the sign ordinance. So Andy sent us around an email report around the tree ordinance issue. Which I mean, I think I know it, but I'll let you do it just so I don't get it
Sure.
wrong.
So just to summarize, the board heard a presentation from the Land Use Technical Committee, which is a group of people put together to help make some improvements in our codes, mostly related to land use. And the board asked that committee to offer a recommendation related to tree removal policy based on the data which we have, which is that the planning board has routinely granted a tree removal approval with a replacement tree contingent. Basically for any reason, whether the tree is healthy or not. And the sense was that because there's so much work that goes into setting up a planning board meeting and agenda and so on. And it's already known what the outcome will be. We can make the process more efficient and less costly, both for the applicant and for the building department. To put the authority administratively in the hands of the building inspector. Similar to right now, where if you have a hazardous tree, Manny can make a determination and issue a removal permit without it going to the planning board. So that was the goal, was to essentially make an administrative process so that the outcome would essentially be the same, but it would be more efficient on all sides. I should say, and there is a member of our tree committee back
Yeah, I
here,
was gonna
Stephen
say,
Thea and Marcy Denker, have done extraordinary work. Not only planting a lot of trees, but also advising the village on matters related to tree policy. And there are a number of issues which they and I and Dennis and Manny have discussed related to the village's tree protection ordinance. And other kinds of needs. This particular item was identified as a low-hanging fruit that could be, they could yield a positive efficiency in the short term. With the understanding that there's more to do. There's a lot of policy issues for the villages to work on, and tree protection is one of them. The item which is in this memo, which came from the tree committee, is essentially a formula for talking about the tree replacement. Which right now in our code, basically it just says, if you're removing a significant tree, the planning board can allow that. Can make an exception to the prohibition on cutting the tree down. If the property can make the case, and also provide a tree as a new tree substitute either on their own location or nearby in the neighborhood. And the terms of that deal aren't specified with any detail in the local code. And so the tree committee had provided a suggestion, which is in this memo, which basically says the bigger the tree, the more what's the word I'm looking for? Substitute or alternative trees would need to be planted. Or the larger, if you don't have any space on your property, the larger the tree being removed, the more money we go into the tree fund to help plant trees in the neighborhood. Because the property owner has no place to put a tree.
I thought I read the memo that I didn't know that we were, if the bigger the tree, the more money we would ask. I thought what we were saying was, if they take a tree down, you put a tree up.
If they can't put a tree
Tree
up,
down,
If they
and you
can't.
can't put it in your property, then you pay for one to go someplace else.
Yeah, I want the board to advise us on. How you want us to write this, because that one for one logic. Is absolutely one of the options.
Okay,
The tree committee had proposed a different approach. Which is more scaled to the sort of size and value of the tree being removed, and so it's up to you. How you want it, because Dennis and I can easily write that either way. It's a matter that needs to be decided.
it looks to me the difference is that if it's a particularly large tree, it won't just be one for one. If it's a 24-inch tree, it'd have to be 3 trees that you have to plant.
Right.
Right, one for, did I do that math correct? One for every 8 inches?
Yes, so the proposal, you may want to invite the tree committee, but the
Why don't you
every
go
8 inches of tree diameter.
Even though it's dark, we can barely see
let me
it.
just set the parameters here. What we're doing is trying to draft a law that then will go into a public hearing, so people will still be able to tell us what they think about our draft law.
Right.
So we would like advice from you on what you think we should put the draft law to be. I just want to make sure that the parameters.
I just want to clarify what's in the memo that we wrote. We made a few recommendations, starting with the size of the significant tree. Back when the comp plan was updated in 2016, I guess it was, the village code had an 8-inch diameter significant tree definition, and it was up to 12 inches for the same reason that we're talking about now, because it was, they were trying to deal with the burden on the planning board. When we were asked to review this a couple of weeks ago, we've been talking about this for quite a few years. In fact, we were talking about it a few years before the comp plan update, but it wasn't really thoroughly addressed at that time. The recommendations in the memo are for removal allowed for any reason once every 5 years, not once every year. We really recommend that you get people, a qualified arborist onto the property to talk to property owners so that they can communicate tree values. It happened to me that I was asked to do that a few years ago, to go talk to the property owner who had an application in, and he didn't remove any trees. He was proposing to remove them. So I think that there's a lot more discussion that should go on around this. And I was a little surprised that this is where it ended up, because when we met with the village administrator, Manny, and the attorney back in January, we started a conversation, and we haven't had further conversation about it. We've never spoken to anybody from the planning board. I guess I dropped the ball about that, but I've been busy doing other things. So it just feels as though.
I'm sorry, you've talked, I'm just trying to figure out the context of what you should, I understand there's been a long process that's gone into it. Is it the memo that we have here that's dated July 13th from the tree committee? Is that a memo?
He requested that we give input about this.
But this memo was written by you all.
Yes.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
And you stand by the memo. That memo is your proposal.
No, there are 2 memos that were in the email that I got today. One, I mean, not a memo, there was the proposed code revision. And then there was the memo where we're recommending these various provisions.
So what we be clear, I pulled out, your memo had more in it than I printed on this piece of paper. Because I was trying to simplify down to just a single tree removal question.
But it is a difference in what we said, because we didn't say that we thought that people should be authorized to take down a tree every year for any
Right.
reason.
Right.
Last time I checked, it wasn't just standard procedure for the planning board to just say to anybody who came in for whatever reason that they should take a tree down. I remember a few years ago that somebody across the street from me where I used to live went with an application, and it was not, he was allowed to take one of the 2 trees down. So if trees are a priority, if we care about them, like other kinds of, structures and green infrastructure in our community, it seems as though the planning board needs to understand that they, or whoever's doing it, that there's gonna be time involved in doing a proper assessment and making sure that we're trying to save trees if they don't need to be removed. And there's an educational component to it. As you know, I've talked to consulting arborists and they know that when they go into property owners and talk to them, sometimes they learn things when they change their minds.
So if I could then make sure I understand your context here, you oppose the entire concept of granting to the chief building inspector the authority to be able to approve the removal of a single tree without that person having to then go to the planning board.
No,
Because that's what was first discussed.
yeah, actually, if I just to clarify, I think our sort of initiative initially was to try to take the burden off the planning board's shoulders, because it was something they were dealing with a lot, didn't have a lot of expertise and needed some sort of assistance, but we thought for some of the things that we already discussed, that the inspector could go and do the low hanging fruit. If the tree's dead, if it's penetrating the building, if it's a hazard, then he would have the authority to approve that permit. What we're talking about in the next phase is a healthy tree. And what we proposed is that an arborist go and do an assessment of that tree to see if it's indeed healthy. And we expand the number of years from 1 year to 5 years that you could take a healthy tree. Our proposal did include the ability of the property owner to remove a healthy tree within a 5-year scope, another 1 year scope. And one thing, and certainly I appreciate the efficiency aspect of sort of formalizing the practice that was already taken, but I would really have you question the practice in the first place. Because removing a tree every year, healthy trees every year, has actually gotten us to a point now where our tree canopy in the village is, according to Google, at 20%. When I did the initial review in 2018 through iTree, a federal tree program, it was at 30%. So we, instead of, with all the trees that we've been planting, instead of building our canopy, we're reducing it. And
Just
there-
clarify, you're talking about you did 2 different studies with 2 different systems. One came 30%, one came 20%. I'm just gonna stop just to say that in my experience, looking at it from one perspective and then looking at another, that can account for a lot of the difference.
And I'll do
I
iTree.
doubt very much that the planning board has approved since 2018 the cutting of a significant number of trees such that it would reduce the canopy by 50%.
Oh,
30-20%?
I think you gotta look at my mother-in-law's backyard to get a sense of what that's like, for sure. I'll do it with iTree again, just because I think that's a valid point. But I'm just trying to give you an idea that if we want to maintain the best, healthiest trees that the village has, formalizing a process of eliminating a healthy tree every year is not going to help, is not going to reduce or change the pattern that we've already had. It's just going to formalize it and on.
There's also one other really important thing that's missing from this, and it's a really important point. We were recommending that the village, instead of having the burden on the planning board and just on the building inspector, would hire a qualified, certified arborist who's now, I would like to recommend somebody who's now working as the, just certified, he's a consulting arborist with really high credentials. And he's working for the village of Upper Nyack in this capacity because somebody noticed, that he did a really excellent assessment and invited him to do this work. So it would get all the mess out of having unqualified tree companies going around doing these reports that don't mean anything. He could just be on call to do these assessments when the building inspector isn't qualified to do that part. So that was part of what we were recommending.
And just for clarification, it's a 33% reduction.
I think it was 30 to 20.
Right.
Oh, you're right. So the
So,
math wasn't so good.
no, that's fine. I just wanted, I just for the.
I multiplied 8 times 3, I got the right number. but-
I would suggest that we're not ready for this. We're not ready for a law. If there's this much dissonance between the tree committee and the LUTC, we need to go back and start over. I know that that's gonna create a lot of anxiety for some people, but there's, how do we, with this input, how do we tell you what the law should be? We have no.
Let me just clarify, because I asked him, then you said no, but then you seem to say yes. You're against the proposal that's been put forth to allow the building inspector to have the authority to approve without planning board to taking down a tree.
So our proposal includes an aspect of that, right?
Yeah, but.
So it includes the building department having authority to remove some trees, the low hanging fruit that I indicated. But when it comes to the removal of healthy trees, that's where we have some disagreement. And the disagreement is actually.
You're trying not to be disagreeable, and I appreciate that, but you oppose the proposal. Because the proposal is to give the authority to the building inspector for healthy trees with an arborist letter of, I'm not sure what the arborist letter is supposed to be.
No arborist.
No arborist letter. So no arborist letter, so, which is fine, I would expect that you would oppose it, that's
It's a healthy
not-
tree. Why would you need an arborist there?
that's what I'm understanding, so, which I think is entirely appropriate for you to express opposition to that, and something, and you propose something that I think is a different take on it, which we should consider, which is why Don's saying we're probably not in a position to be able to approve legislative
Can I
language.
just ask for clarification, because, so like a couple years ago, my parents had what was considered a healthy tree, but it was blocking the gutter and causing water damage in the house. Would a tree like that qualify to be cut down, or would it need to go to an arborist?
Presently, if it's posing a hazard to human health or safety or property, maybe one other criteria, yes, with an arborist letter or an architect's letter. I think the way it's drafted now, as it currently exists, would allow that. Because that's a threat to property, it's a hazard to property.
And would that be the same technically under this new proposal, or what?
Well, the tree committee's recommendation in that case would be it's a healthy tree, have an arborist come in and evaluate it. A third party, not someone who has a vested interest in, the tree removal. And they can make a recommendation, maybe it's trimming on that side of the, or, pruning to alleviate the problem that
So you've really investigated before you just
Right,
went
before we
chopped
just
it
went
down.
chopped
Yeah.
And it's not just, some arborists are so, highly qualified that they can actually come up with solutions that the next arborist who's not really that well, that experience might not even know about. So that's where, the idea that you have somebody on board who, is really capable, and everybody understands that, there are risk trees and trees that cause damage to houses. It's not about that. It's sort of bringing in the extra layer of really intelligent care to protecting trees. The other thing about the proposal, besides the building inspector piece of it, was this yearly permission, so that over.
Understood.
Year versus 5 years.
Understood.
It's essentially.
And we did look at a few other codes, so we know that this is not out an outlier. We are, the things that we're proposing are in codes around the region.
And we recognize that a property owner is going to have a need to remove a healthy tree. And I might go and chain myself to it, but we understand that the village can't be in that position. So that's why we had proposed a 5-year, timeframe, which we thought was reasonable.
Okay, so we are not ready.
Not ready for its full cycle.
So,
Yeah, I agree, we're not ready for this, there's a lot of things to look at. The whole idea of the proposal was not to just allow people to cut any trees any time, but it's happening regardless, since I've been building inspector, several applications have come through. For many trees, every letter that I get from an arborist, every single one said, cut it down. Not one of them said, really, pull the tree or, cut it, every single one of them, so I do agree with having somebody kind of looking for our interest, not just making money and cutting that tree. That's highly important, I believe, and the idea of it, the application, not having to go to planning, we are actually saving trees, believe it or not. With the amount of paper that I have to create to go to the planning, that's kind of a lot of trees.
Yeah, I think the reaction is a little bit, I think we need to work through the dissonance here, because it seems to me that we have a building inspector that's not gonna just cut down trees just because we want to cut down trees. So if we can come up with something that gives him guidance on how to do this, that everybody is okay with, I think we're gonna be fine. And that's what I think we would have ended up with. But I don't think we're ready to go forward with legislation at this point, with this level of distance. So let us absorb this. I know that all the UTC folks will have a bit of a coronary, and because they've worked hard to get to where they are.
Well, I mean, can I just ask about that? I mean, we
No,
didn't
no, I
talk-
really don't want to get into the discussion about what happened or what didn't happen.
No,
It's
I
not
just
worth
wondered,
it.
why would they not want to talk to us since we've been working on this for quite a long time?
How can I answer that question?
Well, I don't know
No.
who they are or anything. That's all I was asking.
It's a committee that's been named, that's been working on stuff from code for probably 10 years.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying that if we're working on trying to make recommendations and talking to the building inspector and the attorney and the village administrator about it, and then this emerges from the land use technical committee, I'm just a little confused.
Realize
about
the impetus of this was simply to allow for the fact that, to reflect the reality. You have an issue with the reality, which is that they're approving too many trees being taken down, which is a separate issue. That's a substantive issue with the planning board. But what was presented, because I was on these meetings, was that the planning board has been approving these. It's taken up a lot of time and energy and paperwork and work of the department to push them through this application process when there are things that could be headed off by the building inspector.
Yeah, I think we were trying to address that same problem. I believe that we were trying to address the same problem.
Yeah, I
Reducing the workload for the planning department, but
think your points have all been well taken.
I won't speak for Marcy, but I think we stand ready to assist with any assistance that we can provide to either land use or the board or the administrator. We just want to help in this regard and try to ensure that the advantages that these trees provide to the village, stormwater management, shade, heat reduction, any number of things.
I think we get it. We're watching the world melt, and trees are really important. So we get it. Let us work on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're gonna have to go back to the land use technical committee if I need to go and talk with them. I'm happy to do it. The next, so we don't need a public hearing for that, so you don't have to worry about that. The next one is for the sign ordinance amendment,
Yeah,
and we're not ready for that one either.
I did get a draft from Bob Galvin for the planner. I did get a draft yesterday, or maybe the day before, of language to go into our proposed amendment regarding the sign ordinance amendment. And I'll need to clean that up and put it into local law form.
Okay, so let's just keep it on old business. We'll bring it up at the next meeting and see where we are. Okay. The Memorial Park, the rain date for Daquan's tournament, he's been rained out, I think, 2 weekends in a row.
Yeah.
So he's asking to change it to the 29th. Is that all right with everyone?
And it's going on that.
Yeah, we already checked that.
Not really fun.
All right, so we're, Andy, I believe you can give him the go ahead on that. New business, DRI is coming up again. The Downtown Revitalization Initiative proposal will be due in September-ish, I think. Normally, and Andy talked to me about reappointing the DRI committee that we had the last time. And our recommendation is that we go with the same committee that we had. They're very familiar with the proposal that we put forth. We've debriefed them on our debrief meeting with the state. And so I think they'd be ready to hit the ground running. If we come up with someone that says, no, I did it last time, I don't want to do it again, we'll come back to you with another name. Or if anybody has a name that they would like to add to it, we'd of course be very willing to consider it.
How many people are on it?
Someone's gonna ask, I'm scrolling down to my list right now.
Things like,
Okay, we had Pastor Washington, Phil Donnelly from the YMCA. Bill Helmer, Tom Schneck, Mark Davidoff, Maria Louisa, Elliot Forrest, Kim Ross, Terry Clark, Paul Adler. And I participate directly. Myself. 11, basically 11.
I think I was on it.
You were there. So
No, no,
you basically convened it.
Yeah. We didn't have any trustees on it because they were giving us advice. It wasn't this, we weren't publicizing. So nothing that committee doesn't get approved by us. If the trustee would rather sit on it than me, that's fine with me. It was just to convene it to get it started, and then pretty much it just took its.
This last I checked, it was I think yesterday, the state had not yet opened up the next round of the DRI, but I'm figuring they will soon because last year was due in September.
Yeah, it would be good for us to get a head start on this.
You did the first service.
Yeah,
Is anything
That should be
changing in our article?
exactly.
That's what the committee will have to help figure out. I'm sure things will change.
Based on.
Based on the recommendations, feedback that we got, feedback we continue to get on some things. Grants that we've submitted that were included in it, that if we get those, we won't need to put them into the DRI. They're just things like that, there will be things. But the basic premise of using our art and soul, the artists are bringing arts, diversity, equity into the entire piece would still be.
I think no matter who's on the committee representing the board, we still, all the voicing work has to be done by the mayor, without question.
Are you volunteering yourself for the job of selling?
No, I'm saying he did the videos, you probably don't remember the videos with the.
No, yeah.
With his sonorous tones.
Yes. Yes, the one where the lady that did the review said, I thought that somebody was doing a voiceover and then I saw his lips moving. All right, so we will then, Andy and I will be in touch with folks actually, and you will inform their interest. We have no communications other than what we've discussed. We'll open up for the last round of public comments. Hearing none, comments from the board. Pascal, you want to start? Donna?
I hope everyone's having a good time.
Yeah,
Yeah, I haven't done a good job of making the weather better. Joe made a big joke about that on Facebook. But I haven't seen it, so.
You have one job.
What are you doing? Jen? Stop.
Not much, they canceled the housing authority meeting. And I want to thank you for taking care of the pothole on Franklin Street.
You're welcome. It
Great.
was a big one.
It was a really big one. And then also I just want to mention, which I've mentioned before, that, you know, that corner, the police are actually patrolling it a little more. But those cars are flying by the stop signs. The corner of and Hudson.
Oh,
And it's
happening all over.
really, yeah, everybody's speeding around.
There has been an uptick in enforcement, which maybe eventually happens to something. But it happened. Where it's happening. I watch that.
And then going down one-way streets and stuff, it's really.
Oh, that's.
Mayor, I mentioned one thing relevant to that. I may have mentioned this before, but I'm not sure. Our Safe Routes to School project, the neighbors had asked for an additional speed hump on Depew coming down the hill. And the engineers have advised that they have a location which meets this traffic safety guidelines for speed humps. So right now, that speed hump is in the plan. The plans, they're a little ways out from having construction documents and going to bid and all that. But just so you know, in terms of traffic calming in the village, that one
Yeah,
device is within our reach for that one section of road, which would be, I think it would be might be between South Mill and Prospect coming down the hill or up the hill. There's somewhere right in that area because there's two further up the hill.
I thought the traffic calming people hated speed bumps, but they don't like them as traffic calming sessions.
I don't think that's true.
It's not true?
Fire departments and snowplows don't like it.
That's kind of been, yeah.
Anybody driving a truck doesn't like it.
There's been new,
And trustees. So.
there's been a new look.
Yeah.
Speed humps are being,
Let's focus.
All right, I just want to congratulate Chamber of Commerce had its classic car night, which they moved down to the marina. Obviously, it was tonight, so none of us got to go. But I hope they had success with it, and it's obviously nice to do it down by the water. I'm sure they got some nice pictures of the bridge in the background. I'm gonna actually go by to see if they're still there. I saw them driving as I got here. They were driving through town to get down. It's so cool. That's it.
Also, congratulations to Visit Nyack for winning the New York State Tourism. They put it out, came out to all to their sort of group that they sent after the board meetings, but they did win that award. And I think one of the things, sometimes we forget the history of how we got to where we are. And Art Clark, who Art and Lynn don't live in Nyack anymore, actually, they always live in South Nyack, but Art was a real pusher and driver for Visit Nyack, did a lot of work to get Visit Nyack off the ground. And he deserves some recognition and kudos for getting that organization and the idea of making it work the way it does. And Tomas and his staff have done a good job for this point. But congratulations to them for your work. Well, Mr. Attorney, I would like to give the board an opportunity to ask legal questions on in a private attorney-client privilege meeting. So for us to have a discussion, and I'd like to do that after we adjourn the meeting.
sure, that would be outside of the open meetings law, and you're asking legal questions of your counsel, village attorney, and you have the right to hear my counsel and ask those questions in a confidential attorney-client privilege meeting. So you just triggered that, and you may do that at any moment.
Okay, so we will not have an executive session, but we will have a discussion with Dennis about some legal questions that we may have. So I would entertain a motion for adjournment from Joe.
I was gonna say you're.
Maybe an hour and a half.
And a second from Pascal. Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.